believe we live in a patriarchy?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Then why is
men
it
are
that
in this
then why is
society.
it that more women graduate than men from college? Women in their 20s earn more than men. Men are far likely to commit bankruptcy. Men are much more likely to commit suicide. Men are much more likely to be homeless. Men are much more likely to go to war and die. Women control 80% of the financial decisions in this country. Women that of course, look it up yourself. Women in their 20s are far off better than men. Women control most of the financial.
That's true. That's very
17 out of the last 18 years of doctorate degrees, women got more doctorates than men. Women are far better off than men in this society right now.
You really believe that?
Show me one statistic. Show me one statistic that points to the opposite. I just named 15. Suicide rates, homeless rates, bankruptcy rates, depression, murder, jail, prison, you name it. Men are much more likely to commit crimes, go to prison, be bankrupt. And also suicide. Women in their 20s earn much more than men in their 20s. You know why that changes?
What about the 1%, which is predominantly male millionaires and billionaires?
Well, that's because women voluntarily leave the workforce in their late 20s to have children. When most promotions are given out and most raises are given out, that's when men stay in the corporate culture and climb the exponential ladder that happens between the ages of 28 and 40. When women stay in the corporate culture, that's when they get promoted faster than men. When women have the same similar educational degree, same work experience, the same work ethic, they earn more than men. We live in a society that women are doing much better than men in. In America, if you make a sequence of good choices irrelevant of skin color, you will be rewarded for those choices. We're one of the only countries in the world where that is possible, where you can have intergenerational ascension, where your kids can be better than how you are today. It's not a fallacy. That's why Asian Americans entered. That's why Asian Americans entered in the 1940s as the poorest group in America, and they're now the richest group. The Constitution was not written in Korean, yet they have benefited the most from what people call a white predominant society. Indian Americans, for example, from India, are the second richest per race.
Was the Constitution written in Hindi?
No, that's exactly the point.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Continue.
The point is that people say that our society is rigged for white individuals and white men. The evidence does not suggest that. There's twice as many white people living in poverty today than black people. Now, the rate for poverty in the black community is much higher, but the aggregate number is something that should not be ignored. So the misconception that our country is rigged just for people based on a certain skin color has zero evidence. Most of our laws are written to benefit very well-connected lobbyists and corporations.
Correct.
And you might say, Charlie, but how as a capitalist can you support? You know, I don't support that system. What I support is making government not big enough to be bought. See, so when things are more localized, it's harder to buy things. Not impossible, but it's harder. When things go to DC and you have trillions of dollars, right, up for sale, appropriating $1 billion here and $1 billion there to benefit a corporation is quite easy. And then you have politicians that are literally for sale, that go to certain corporations and they don't want to make the tough laws that might go after the drug companies. Now, my idea of a tough law would be to deregulate. A liberal idea of a tough law would be to regulate. Okay, that's fine. That's a disagreement. But here's an interesting statistic. 8 out of 10 of the wealthiest counties in America are around Washington, D.C. 8 out of 10. Like, what does D.C. create? Like, why are we rewarding that? They create nothing. They literally pass laws to make our life more difficult. They're getting richer at our expense. That's bipartisan. That's something that Bernie Sanders can agree with and Trump can agree with. You know who likes that, though? Who likes that is the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrats. So I actually think there's some very strange unity between people that would consider themselves Democrat socialists and people that would consider themselves conservative libertarians, such as myself, that the system is rigged for the wealthy few and the well-connected and the trial lawyers and the lobbyists that literally have access to the system. So if we both agree we don't trust government, I say don't make that government bigger and stronger, more powerful. Liberals would say to reform it. I would say that's quite a tough task.
So I'm a conservative. One thing I have a hard time rationalizing to my liberal friends, and conservatives on TV and politicians have a hard time articulating, is intelligent reasons why the wall must be built. I am curious your thoughts on that.
3 quick things. Number 1, I'm going to say some facts. I'm going to talk about fairness. Then I'm going to talk about sovereignty. Some facts. An illegal alien in the state of Arizona is twice as likely to commit a crime versus a natural-born citizen. Fact. 90% of all heroin and fentanyl come across the southern border. Fact. Over 10,000 kids are illegally sex trafficked across the southern border every single year. Fact. We have 56,000 illegal immigrants in our federal prison system. Fact. And countless in our state penitentiary system. $135 billion a year. That's how much is the financial burden on U.S. taxpayers every single year that illegal immigrants drain from our system. Fact. You put all that together, that's a pretty compelling argument that we have some problems with our southern border. Those are some facts. Number two is fairness. As Candace said, it is not fair to the people in Bolivia. It's not fair to the people in Bangladesh. It is not fair to the people in Belarus that had to wait in line, fill out an application form, not commit a crime, and then wait a decade to come into this country to maybe have a chance to become an American. It is not fair to them. Number three is sovereignty. Why do walls matter? Why do borders matter? Borders are a physical representation of when good ideas begin and bad ideas start. If you don't believe me, just ask East and West Germany, or North or South Korea. If you believe in open borders, you do not believe in the physical delineation of where good ideas start and bad ideas start. The wall right now is not only important for facts, not only important the facts I mentioned, the fairness, but also the sovereignty. We are not Mexico. We have a unique culture. We have a unique identity. The Mexican culture is something that should be appreciated and understood, but our culture is much different and has outpaced them over the last 50 years. And to say that we should have open borders and we should have some sort of transferable citizenship cheapens the idea of the American identity and culture of the people that have waited in line and the tens of millions of immigrants that have to fly halfway across the world to come into this country. So those are the three reasons I would give: to build the wall, build it quickly, build it high, build it wide, with a big door so everyone can come in legally. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question regarding taxation is that you talk about that. What do you mean by that point? Because I've heard that a lot, and I would at first glance I would disagree with you, but I want to know exactly what you mean by that.
Sure. So it's theft of your freedom, your liberty, and your treasure. So the question is, how much of that are you willing to sacrifice for some form of civil government? And so I made the proposition that a 10% flat tax for everyone based on income, based on wealth, that it should be just 10% across the board. But you have to recognize that you are 100% owner of everything that is yours. Your private property, your earnings. The government it should start at zero. And then we come to some form of consensus or decision of how much we're willing to sacrifice of that, how much we're willing to give up of that to have some form of a functioning civil government. And so it is theft. They are forcibly taking it from you at gunpoint. For example, what happens if you don't pay your taxes? You go to prison. Yeah. Therefore, under penalty, at gunpoint, you must pay money to the federal government.
So there shouldn't be, under penalty of law, there shouldn't be enforcement of taxation?
No, I mean, whether that should happen? No, I mean, I think that if you come to a number that is reasonable, we have unreasonable numbers. And it's not just the income tax. You have to realize all the other taxes we pay in society. Sales tax, property tax, medical excise tax.
Death tax.
Literally a death tax.
Pay to die.
There's 6 taxes when you buy an airplane ticket. Okay? There's so many unnecessary taxes. And so you have to recognize that there should be some form of taxation within society. How much of your time and treasure and your resources are we willing to give up? I think the only fair solution to that is the one that is actually dictated in the Bible, which is 10%. 10% across the board, regardless of income, regardless of treasure, regardless of success. No loopholes, no deductions, no charitable, nothing. Just 10% across the board for everybody. And the final thing I'll say is this, is that 40% of Americans pay 0% in taxes. There's something wrong with that. They should at least pay a penny, pay $1. You have to have some form of skin in the game.
You're saying you're a capitalist.
I am a proud and ardent
capitalist.
capitalist.
We don't have capitalism in America. This is a mixed economy. We have many aspects of socialism. We have for many
and those are the worst aspects of America. The most bankrupt, the most inefficient aspects of America are our socialist programs, such as the VA. The Veterans Administration, we spend $180 billion a year to try to take care of our vets. We have waiting lines, vets dying waiting for care.
So you want pure capitalism?
I would like to go more towards pure capitalism, but look, I'm also a pragmatist. I want lower taxes, less regulation, government spending to be scaled back, balanced budgets, and less power to go to Washington, D.C.
I'm a political science minor. I'm pre-med, but I added political science just because it interests me. And I came to hear you guys talk about conservative ideas, like academic stuff, and I came here to be attacked as a liberal. And so I was wondering, what was your point for coming here other than attacking.
But nevertheless, look at the fact that how great it is that you did come. And I think that's fantastic. And guess what? You had the mic today. You're able to ask questions and express your viewpoints. I want to hear them. I want you to make your own decisions about what you believe in and what you stand for, because that's what this country is founded on. We have freedom of thought and not groupthink. So good for you. You'll make your own decisions.
And the people in this room, just so you understand why we go around, they never get to see their ideas expressed. When they're in classrooms, they have teachers that don't agree with them. When they turn on the news, they have news anchors telling them that they're racist and sexist and misogynist. They deserve to have people stand on stage and acknowledge their beliefs and tell them that they are just Americans and it's okay to love this country. So we did not mean to make you feel bad, but we also want to give them an opportunity to be who they are and feel comfortable wearing a MAGA hat once in a while.
And if you have an academic question about any policy, about why this president is on pace to be the most successful president in U.S. history, or why free market capitalism is the most moral, effective, and proven economic system, lift most people out of poverty into prosperity, or why America is the greatest country in the history of the world, or why the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written, or why Western civilization is the greatest experiment ever tried, I can have those conversations at any time. But I'm here for the silent majority that is silent no longer, to give them the courage, confidence, and conviction to fight on campuses. Here's what's so important, though. I want everyone to hear this very, very carefully, is that we didn't attack anybody. That is a complete fabrication. It's just, this might be the first time you've heard conservative ideas, so you might think your own ideas are under attack.
Right now. You're not under attack. We just don't agree with your ideas. That's it.
And when we point out factual problems with the American left, like that they held an FBI, where they held this accusation for 6 weeks, or we say the left only cares about power.
Or black people don't have to be Democrats. That's not to attack you, that's just a fact.
Women don't have to be Democrats.
These might be wildly controversial sentiments on a college campus, but no one's under attack. What is happening in this country is that there's a lot of people that when asked, like, do you have a Republican friend, a lot of people say no. A lot of people. When polled, I think like 35% of Californians can't name a Republican that they know. That's a big problem, because then you start to think that conservatives and Republicans are evil people. So people say, Charlie, why do you come here? Well, have a conversation, disagree with me, and then you might say, well, I hate him, he's a moron, but at least he's not evil. Like, that would be nice. When we see that ethno-nationalist tendency start to brew, we reject it, because we're so proud of our ideas and not identity on skin color. We don't want to associate with that. We don't need someone to tell us to reject it. We do it automatically, correct? But the left, when they go too far, when they go full cultural Marxist, when they say there's no genders, there should be no private property, you should be able to take whatever you want to take, do whatever you want to do, there is no God, government should have total and complete control, we should live in a state of what do they call that? Communal anarchy. They do not expel the demons from their ranks, folks. They elect them to office. Now let's talk about illegal immigration in general. This is a plot by the Democrat Party to never solve this issue, to try to create a political wedge narrative so that they could create a future group of voters forever, so that they can have a Democrat majority. Because if immigration was fixed, what other sort of victim group can they create? They've already made the Native Americans completely and totally poor for the last 70 years by putting them on government dependence. They've done that with the urban cities, with the African American community. Now they have to go after the Latino community. And every single part of the population the Democrat Party goes after, gets hooked on government dependence, they get much more poor, the cities get more murderous, and everything gets screwed up. You want to see an American ghetto? I'll show you somewhere a Democrat's in charge. I got a good one for you. Feminism is much more about hating men than empowering women. Because if the feminist left truly cared about empowering women, they would be marching in the streets, celebrating, thanking Donald Trump for the first ever female director of the CIA, and Gina Haspel, or for Nikki Haley, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or Betsy DeVos, or the first campaign manager to ever win, Kellyanne Conway, the first presidential campaign manager to ever win a presidential campaign as a woman, Kellyanne Conway. There are more women in high-ranking positions and cabinet official positions in this White House than any other presidency in
Melania
US
Trump would be on the cover of Vogue if they gave her the treatment that they gave Michelle Obama when she was in office. We have the classiest first lady, in my opinion, that has ever been in the White House, and they treat her with no respect whatsoever. That has labeled me as somebody that's controversial. She doesn't believe in Planned Parenthood. I'll tell you what else I don't believe in. I don't believe in the welfare system. You know, I make strong statements and I say that I don't believe in the welfare system because look at what it has earned people that have gone onto the welfare system. Absolutely nothing. Since LBJ put in place the Great Society Act, which he referred to as the N-word bill, it has completely decimated our communities.
You keep mentioning the failures of capitalism, and then your solution to the failures of capitalism is more capitalism, more free market.
Failure of statism. Well, you know how about the failure, how about the successes of free market capitalism? The fact that we have abundance in light, air conditioning. The fact that we have more food that we throw away every single year than we actually eat. The fact that in the Western world...
You think that's a good thing? You think that our waste is a good thing, dude?
We have an abundance problem in the West, not a scarcity problem.
Yeah.
In Venezuela, the average Venezuelan has lost 17 pounds. Oh, yes? 4,000% inflation. Yes. Brink on the Civil War.
Venezuela,
yes.
the only socialist country on the planet, everybody.
Yes. The fact they have 42% unemployment. Yes. The fact that Maduro continues to exploit his citizens around the lies of Karl Marx. Yes. Is that what we're talking about, Hassan?
I would like for you guys to clarify a little bit between like Scandinavian socialism and the socialism of Venezuela. That's a question that a lot of students have is, well, it seems to be going great for Finland, so if you guys have opinions on that and can differentiate like why they maybe are not as socialist as we think.
Population size of New Jersey?
Well, yeah, it's also the World Economic Freedom Index. Finland, Norway, and Sweden are ranked higher than the United States on economic freedom. So if socialists are all for economic freedom, then they're not socialists. Okay, so the Scandinavian states actually have a higher degree of economic freedom than the United States does. Okay, so they also use Switzerland. Switzerland has the second degree of economic freedom in the entire world. But you know what? Candace brought up a great point. The critique of Scandinavia is quite simple. If you, the economic freedom standpoint, you have to understand they don't have socialism, but they do have a welfare state. And I'm a huge critic of the welfare state. I can tell you why. First, let's look at their population. 8 million people. Rather ethnically homogenous.
97% to 99% all white. They don't let in. So these people that are saying, open the borders, also talk about saying, let's be like Switzerland and Finland. It makes absolutely no sense.
They fund their government primarily through fossil fuel exploration.
We pay for their army, which we should not. We pay for their military, which we should not.
They don't pay anything for their military. Nothing. And not to mention, Sweden has full school choice. So if a socialist wants to come up here and tell me they love Sweden, then let's sign up for school choice then. In Sweden, you can go to any school, private or public, you get a voucher from the government. That's not what the left in America believes. So if you actually look at the Scandinavian countries, they have very, very pro-free market stances. However, they also have a 60% tax rate for the ultra-rich. I don't want to live in that kind of country. I mean, is that the kind of culture and society you want to live in? There's non-stops from New York City to Copenhagen. Like, God bless you. I mean, don't try to change a country that is based in freedom to a country that is not. I mean, I have very little sympathy for people that try to come here and erode why people come here in the first place. Because there's other countries that do it quite fine, and guess what? You probably won't get accepted because they have strict immigration policies. Look, during the Obama years, we were complaining about youth unemployment being near 20%, student loan debt skyrocketing, and now we see the lowest youth unemployment in 50 years, wages going up. It's the best economy to be a recent college graduate. And thanks to the leadership of President Donald Trump, our generation has hope and optimism again, a lot different than that was promised under President Obama. But low taxes, less regulation, entrepreneurial-friendly economy is very, very good for young people that are entering the workforce, and we should be thankful that we're able to live in this country at this time with this president has given the opportunity for our generation that was really, quite frankly, living in mediocrity under the previous administration.
You have to ask yourself, why would anybody put themselves through this if they did not believe that they had important information to convey to the Senate? She basically said that. She thought it was her civic duty. So I found her presentation, I found her willingness to say, I don't remember that, but I remember this, to be very convincing. And I felt a great swell of, pride that she would be willing to put herself out there under these circumstances.
Sam, if somebody's willing to pay you $130,000 or $170,000 to say something, and you get your 15 minutes of fame, and you get your picture on the front page of every newspaper, and you're some failed cabaret singer who doesn't even have much of a resume to fall back on, and what's there she's lied about. You know, that's the daughter of Willie Horton, as far as I'm concerned. It's the same kind of attempt to keep the real issues of this country out of the mainstream debate where they need to be.
You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and if they see it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic.
You want to talk about how racist the Democrat Party has become. And I don't say these words haphazardly because I hate throwing around these words. I shouldn't say it's their race. Their race is a good example of their racism, but also their hatred. Why? Is there any good reason why the Congressional Black Caucus looked so angry and stayed seated during the State of the Union when these good things about black Americans were being recited by the president? None of them applauded. None of them stood up. None of them even looked happy, because they know if blacks' lives get better, they're irrelevant. They're going to become Republicans. They won't be Democrats anymore. If they break out of this cycle, Maxine Waters won't have a constituency anymore. Right? They're not going to be Democrats anymore, so they're angry. No, we have to get these people back on food stamps. We have to get them back on our failing schools. We have to get them back on government dependency. There is no other answer to that. They should be cheering from the rooftops if black people's lives are getting better.
I'll give you one example of how you know that you're not being told the truth. Just yesterday, someone was telling me that at their college in California, there are signs all over that it is forbidden to record what any of the teachers say in their classes. Is that not a giveaway that they are afraid that what they say may actually be publicized? I taught at college. That was my first career, a college teacher. And in those days, they used cassettes. You can see that at the Smithsonian Institute if you want to know what a cassette is. And they would record. But they always asked me out of politeness, Mr. Prager, is it okay if we record your class? And I remember thinking then, why could it possibly not be okay? What would I say to you that I would not want others to hear? But they're afraid. That's the only possible reason a teacher at a college would object to their class being recorded. They are afraid, and that means they know that they're a fraud. Because if you are genuine, you are not afraid that your genuineness be revealed. You should go into a class, teachers of America, and say, please record what I have to say. I want what I have to say to be heard by others.
What the general consensus that is taught in schools, correct me if I'm wrong, it's that Republicans were really the Democrats back then. Abe Lincoln was actually a Democrat. In fact, I unearthed a plaque at the University of Illinois Chicago that still stands to this day that says Abraham Lincoln Democrat, and they refuse to take it down. Still to this day. It's stunning. So they say that essentially the Republicans used to be the Democrats and the Democrats used to be the Republicans. So what are they really saying? Well, that Republicans have always been racist and they're still racist today. That's essentially what they're saying. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Republican Party was founded upon the election of Abraham Lincoln. The Republican Party has always been the party of human freedom, of human rights, and liberation from bondage. Has always been that party and will always be that party. Now, the Democrats founded the KKK, sent KKK members to Congress, put KKK members as governor, so on and so forth. But the consensus that is taught in our schools is that somehow there was this great switch that all of a sudden there was like a handshake done in Congress, and they just like switched ideological parties. Completely and totally untrue. So how do I prove that? Let's talk about it logically first and foremost. Why is it that as the South got significantly less racist over time, it got more Republican? How's that possible? It should have been the opposite. It should have been that if the South got less racist, it should have gotten more Democrat, correct? How is it that South Carolina, that has been commonly labeled as the most racist state in the country, elected an Indian American daughter of first-generation immigrant as governor, and an openly a black senator? How is that possible with 67% of the vote? Well, it's because if you look at the trend within the Democrat Party, is they used to control the bodies of African Americans. Now they control them politically. And look no further than when this this change happened with Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now LBJ was a bitter and committed racist. He hated black people. He in fact opposed the Civil Rights Act for 20 years. He did not want to sign it. It was JFK that actually championed the Civil Rights Act. He was slaughtered in the streets of Dallas. And LBJ said, boy, I hope I don't have to get those N-word people the right to vote, because they were all Republicans in the South. So LBJ was tasked. He was tasked with a problem. He saw Martin Luther King, who was a Republican, by the way, marching the streets of Alabama, marching the streets of Mississippi, and gaining a lot of traction. So Lyndon Baines Johnson said, I got a problem here. The Civil Rights Act's probably going to pass. So what do? I make a grand bargain. My hatred for black people remains the same, but they'll probably get the right to vote. I know what I'll do. I'll control them. I'll get them committed to the welfare state. I'll cluster them geographically. We'll deteriorate their family. We'll introduce drugs into the inner cities, not police them, subsidize single motherhood, and I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 100 years. Direct quote in the presidential record.
Those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, Democrat Party. And what's amazing to me is if they truly did have a morally consistent analysis towards this sort of believe women, they would believe the accuser of Keith Ellison. They would believe the multiple credible accusations against Bill Clinton. They would believe the people that accused Bill Clinton were of the same party as Bill Clinton. They had very little to gain in different periods of his life with the similar type of accusations, but it was Hillary who tried to discredit them. It was James Carville, who you watch on CNN, if you can make sense of what he's saying, which I can't because of how he talks, it's just maybe it's part of his whole thing. He says, direct quote, in the 1990s when these women started to come out of the woodwork, he said, well, this is what you get when you drag a $100 bill through a trailer park. Who remembers that? That's how the Democrat Party thought of survivors of a Democrat. They now are saying the same thing about the accuser of Keith Ellison. So I believe in due process. I believe in the presumption of the innocence of everyone who's been accused, but I also try to call a double standard. And the other party is very selective in which individuals they want to have go in front of a Senate Judiciary Committee to try to act, morally sanctimonious on all these issues.
There's a lot of highs in this administration. Stock market's at record high, consumer confidence record high, but there's a lot of lows too.
Like black unemployment, all-time low. Women unemployment, all-time low.
Hispanic unemployment, all-time low. Women's unemployment, lowest in 50 years. Taxes, lowest they've been in 70 years.
Why should we listen to Taylor Swift more than Kanye West when Kanye West is clearly pretty neurotic?
I can answer that. It's very simple. Kanye West has not told anybody who they should go vote for or what they should think. He simply said that he supports the president. Taylor Swift came out and wrote a diatribe saying exactly what we know all leftists say. This person is a racist, this person is a sexist, this person is misogynist, and I am not voting for this person and you shouldn't either. Kanye West has never done that, not once. He simply says he supports the president. That's a message of love, not hate.
Well, I will say this. I'm fearful that there's too many people in this country that will resort to this. But I am hopeful that we had a good conversation. I would all agree with that. I'm none of the things that sign says. White nationalist, racist, sexist, anti-gay. But you know what's really sickening? is there are racists out there.
You.
What have I ever said that's racist? Name one thing.
You've enabled people to
Name
speak
one.
about racism, and by enabling people and giving them a platform.
Like who? Like Candace Owens?
People. Exactly.
Oh, Candace Owens is a racist.
I don't have to say anything, and you're the one who's going to talk.
Name one thing I've ever done that's racist.
I don't have to speak to you any more than I have to, but the fact that you're talking to these people with such hate, you're going completely against what you're saying.
I'm the hateful one where they say Chuck
They're saying nothing. They're saying nothing, and you're attacking them
no,
with
the
your
signs
words.
talk for their hatred.
Okay, and so does your justice shirt with the rapist on it.
Does it bother you who's on the Supreme Court? Does that trigger you?
The fact that you're wearing a rape apologist shirt.
He never raped anybody, nor was he ever
Sexual
accused of rape.
assault, whatever the you need to stop talking. Hi, hey mom. And you're
Why
just,
do I need to stop talking?
You're bringing hate to this campus, and there was none before.
No, actually love and unity and conversation and agreement and pictures with Democrats. There are real racists in the world. And when you call people like me a racist, it cheapens real racism. Because everybody then becomes a racist. There's zero evidence that I'm a racist. Our defining question of the 2020 election is, are you thankful or are you angry to live here? What's so amazing is if you look at public polling, throughout all the Obama years, support of America and the question, are you proud to be an American if you're a conservative, didn't change. Conservatives said, I'm proud to be an American despite who is president. And I was one of those people. I was just as proud to be an American today as I was during Obama years. Right? Would we agree to that? We are proud of our country despite who is president.
We had some young folks, leaders from all over the country, that had never been on an airplane before. We had some that couldn't afford the airplane ticket, couldn't afford the refundable deposit at the hotel. And what we did at Turning Point USA is historic and it's special. We raised enough money to cover every single person so they wouldn't have finances as a problem in experiencing the American dream. This was an awesome event for these young folks. 400 black leaders from all over the country able to be in the White House and hear from the president. And I'm going to say this, and I want Al Sharpton to be watching this network and listen to me clearly. As a strong black man raised by a black father, I'm telling Al Sharpton to his face that he should be ashamed of himself. These young people had a great experience. They were enthusiastic, and I want to set the record straight. The White House was one element of a 4-day summit where these young people were inspiring, and they were doing the exact thing that they wanted to do. I had a mom crying on the phone to me because her daughter couldn't make it. And I couldn't be more proud of Turning Point USA and our staff for making that happen for that mother, making that happen for that child. And this was a great thing. And anybody who will counter that and have a problem with that, that person is not a respectful person to the African-American people, the African-American youth, and they should all be ashamed of themselves. And I want every young person to know that I got your back. I'm going to fight for you. Turning Point is going to fight for you, and we're going to make sure that we continue to make America great, and we are free thinkers, and we're going to do everything we can to live the American dream, because this country belongs to us just like everybody else.
And as we conservatives believe, we believe the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. As we send more money to Washington, D.C., the IRS gets more powerful, the government bureaucracies get more powerful, and our freedom decreases with that. As we've seen in the last 18 months, what happens when you start to cut taxes and deregulate the economy? The lowest ever black unemployment rate, the lowest ever Hispanic unemployment rate, the highest ever median income amongst the Hispanic community, economic confidence at an all-time high, 4.2% GDP rate, 3.7% unemployment rate. This economy is so great, Obama's trying to take credit for it.
Whether you're African American or Hispanic American or any American, really any American at all, you have the right to live in a country that puts your needs first. So we're so thankful. Because people said, I mean, I heard this one a couple of weeks ago. I said, give me a break. They said, America first. That could be racist. I said, racist? Racist. Why is that racist? Here we are. I think, does everybody in this room agree? You're living in America. America first, right? We're here. Racist.
see yesterday when on their network, a network that loves to call everybody racist, everybody in this room is racist. If you even go and hear Candace, who is a black woman,
they call her
speak,
a white supremacist.
You're a racist, right?
You think I'm kidding?
No, it's not a joke. And last night, they're talking about how Kanye is going to see the president, and they literally referred to him on air as a token Negro. And Don Lemon just starts cracking up. Could you imagine this? Talking about a double standard, that they are just being openly racist on their network and laughing about it. Bakari Sellers and Don Lemon laughing and calling him an uneducated, no book reading Negro. They use this language. And why is that? Stuff like that, it infuriates me. Of course it's racist. It infuriates me, but at the same time, it lets me know that we're really close, that we are winning the cultural war.
The left, they are losing the battle of ideas, and now they are resorting to these mob tactics to try to intimidate Republican congressmen and senators. And unfortunately, this is a growing trend. These are not isolated incidents, whether it be the Nevada activists that were Trump Republicans in Las Vegas that were assaulted, or in Manhattan, the GOP headquarters that was defaced by Antifa activists, or if you see what happened here with Senator Mitch McConnell or Senator Ted Cruz was trying to eat dinner in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago. They tried to storm him out of a restaurant. The Democrat mob know they're losing, but this is a harbinger of things to come if we give power back to the Democrats. If the Democrats take over the House of Representatives, it will be bedlam. It will be chaos. There will be committees without any sort of direction, just to try to penalize Republicans. And the base of the Democrat Party, you're looking at it, they go after Republicans, going after conservatives just because they disagree with them.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic.
Yeah, I think I caught you off guard.
Never gets old. It never gets old. That is so exciting. Happy anniversary to all of the patriots that are watching this morning. The basket of deplorables. We've had a tremendously successful 19 months.
You know what's so interesting to me, though, Candace? They're still doing that. They, you know, they're still making the same mistakes of marginalizing so many people in the country. You would think that they would learn from that mistake and stop it.
And then Obama says we need decency back in our politics. He called us clingers. He said that anyone who's pro-life is war on women. He said that, you know, you cannot possibly be a conservative Hispanic, and he's the one that says we need to bring decency back to our dialogue. It's ridiculous.
Elitists talking down to everybody. That's exactly what the Democrat Party has become.